Hi everyone, and welcome to this session as part of National Apprenticeship Week, brought to you by Career Map. I'm Eloise from Career Map, and it's so great to see so many of you on the session today. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. You can drop in, say hi, ask any questions you have as the presentation continues, and we will try and get to the Q&A at the end. There might be some questions that are picked up during the process as well, so drop them in the chat. If you can use the Q&A function for questions, that'd be great. It's just so we can make sure that none of them are missed. And then in the chat you can say hi, where you're from, what you're interested in, and maybe also if there are any technical issues, like if you can't hear us or see us or anything like that, put those in the chat as well. And this session will be recorded, so you'll be able to come back to it. If you've registered for the session, you will get an email that should give you the link to the recording and also a link to the website and places where you can find out more details about all the things that we mentioned. And other than that, I think I will hand over to the team to talk to you about careers in engineering construction, and I will speak to you again at the end.
Hi, hello everyone. So we're about to have a look at a presentation, and the presentation is really just to inform you about the opportunities in the engineering construction industry, or the ECI, as we call it. So first of all, to introduce myself, I'm Adrian Wookey. I'm head of new entrants for the Engineering Construction Industry Training Board. So let's start to have a look then, and let's have a look at the industry. We're going to take you on a little bit of a journey now, and first of all, we're going to tell you all about who we are, the ECITB. So the Engineering Construction Industry Training Board is the skills, standards and qualifications body for the development of the engineering construction workforce of Great Britain. So what does that actually mean? What do we do? So we work with companies, training providers and educational bodies, and our mission is to attract, develop and qualify the people that work in our industry. And that means people that work in a whole range of disciplines. So really, in essence, we're here to make sure that the industry has got the skilled workforce to enable it to do the right jobs, well, the right jobs at the right time. Sounds quite simple, doesn't it? But when you start to have a look at the detail, you'll see that there's some very interesting and complex skill sets within our industry. We have the next slide, please. Okay, so engineering construction industry. Okay, so really, to summarize it, we are at the heart of many things that we take for life, take granted for, as part of everyday life. We're the cornerstone of Britain's energy and process industries. Our companies design, engineer, construct and decommission some of the biggest infrastructure projects in the country, not only in this country, but globally. So our industry, engineering construction, will be central to delivering net zero. So you've probably all heard about net zero, about clean energy technologies and how important it is that we deliver net zero. Engineering construction will be a key player in realizing that vision. So what do we do then? What is the industry? So the engineering construction industry operates across many sectors. So we operate across oil and gas, nuclear and renewable sectors, as well as the major process industries such as chemicals, pharmaceuticals, food processing, water and waste treatment. So really, we're at the center of everything we need to function in everyday life. So power, water, food, medicine. So as the slide says, our industry contributes to around about 100 billion to the UK economy, and we employ about 190,000 people. Now, these people that we employ fulfill a range of occupations, and that ranges from welding to pipe fitting, to project managers, to wind turbine technicians. In essence, there's a pathway to suit everyone. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play a short video, and the video is just going to really summarize what we've just discussed. So if we could play the video.
Engineering construction is the industry that powers our lives. It designs, builds and looks after the energy systems that keep our lights on, the machines that keep our water clean and flowing, and put food on your table. The systems that generate the fuels we use to get about and to keep us warm. Engineering construction is central to tackling climate change. Do you want to learn skills that will allow you to enjoy an exciting and rewarding career and get paid a great starting salary? The industry needs people like you to power its future. It's time to change the future. It's time to change your future. It's time for a career in engineering construction.
Fantastic, short, sharp, punchy video. So we're going to get back into the presentation now, and we're going to look at the next slide. And in this slide, we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the sectors and what those sectors actually do. So you'll see we've got a nice little graphic on there, and each hub or each blade, if you like, of the turbine has got a different picture on it, and that picture relates to a whole range of sectors. So we're going to start with renewables. And renewables, as some of you or most of you are probably aware, is really important because it harnesses the Earth's natural resources. So I'm talking about things like wind, waves, and biomass, and from those clean energy sources, it generates power. It's also affordable and reliable. So it's a very, very important sector going forward on our journey to net zero. The next one we've got is pharmaceuticals. Well, pharmaceuticals kind of speaks for itself. So pharmaceuticals produce vital drugs and medicines. So without the pharmaceutical sector, a lot of us wouldn't be around, and those that are around might not be as healthy as we are. The next one is chemicals. So the chemical sector is quite an interesting one. It's a very diverse sector, and the chemical sector impacts on just about every aspect of our daily life. If you want to consider the 3D print market, which is an emerging technology, that's heavily reliant on the UK chemical industry, as are other things such as rubber, a whole range of things. So the next one we're going to look at is food and drink. So food and drink is an interesting one. Did you know that food and drink is the biggest manufacturing industry in the UK? It's bigger than automotive and aerospace combined. So I don't need to go into examples of what the food and drink sector produces, but it's not just food and fizzy drinks. It goes out to alcohol, all types of alcohol as well. The next one is power. So power, again, vitally important, keeps the lights on. And we've got all types of power stations and turbines that generate this power, hook up to the grid, and eventually finds its way into our homes. And then we've got oil and gas. So oil and gas is an interesting one. We've got what we call upstream and downstream in oil and gas. A good example of upstream is an oil rig, an installation that could be sat off the coast. And then downstream would be a refinery where we're actually looking to refine the oil and gas that's extracted from the upstream installations. Obviously, we've then got nuclear. Nuclear currently provides more than 20% of the country's electricity. It's reliable and it's a low carbon energy source. Many of you have probably heard about the nuclear new build that's happening down in the southwest, Hinkley Point C, and there's probably another one going to come online on the east coast as well in the near future. So it is a growing industry. In fact, all of the industry or sectors that we're talking about are growing. Okay, last but not least, we've got water. Very important is water, because without water, we wouldn't be able to wash, and we'd be in a bit of a pickle. Okay, so as you can see, all of those sectors that I've just talked about are vitally important to everyday life, and they're also vitally important to enable our journey to a cleaner future through realizing net zero. So let's have a look at the next slide then. Okay, so let's have a little moment and consider about what it means to be an apprentice in the engineering construction industry. So, first and foremost, there's a variety of apprentice roles that you can undertake in the different sectors, and those roles can range from being at the front end of an engineering project where you're drawing up complex designs using computer-aided design, for instance. You could be making presentations to senior stakeholders about the design. You could then be working in another phase of a project where you could be installing plant and equipment into infrastructure. You could be testing it, you could be routinely maintaining it, and then at the very end you could even be dismantling it. And this is on a global scale. It's not just restricted to the UK. So if you enter the engineering construction industry, you've got the opportunity for travel as well as the opportunity to embark on a well-paid career. So engineers are in demand. Apprentices are in demand. We estimate that there's approximately 25,000 additional workers across multiple disciplines required to enter the industry, and that's to meet current and forecasted demand for the major projects, including those related to net zero. And this needs to happen by 2026. So the industry is crying out for new blood. So it's an absolute perfect opportunity for you to have a look at this. Okay, next one. Let's have a look at the different routes that we've got into engineering. So we've talked about the apprenticeship. There's also another route that we use, and that's the ECITB scholarship. So the ECITB scholarship's an interesting program. It's just another method of entering the industry, and it provides a sustainable pipeline of new entrant talent, and the program delivers a good grounding in industrial knowledge and skills that are in demand in the region that the scholarship's being delivered. So the whole premise of the scholarship is that you undertake a full-time program of study, either for a year or 2 years, and during that time you will get recognized industry, recognized qualifications, as well as a good grounding in safety. And then at the end of the program, you can then look to enter employment with an employer, either going into an apprenticeship or as a direct site hire. We've got many pathways in the scholarship. We've got 2 green pathways, which are the energy transfer technician, which is a forward-looking pathway, and we've also got a wind turbine technician pathway, as well as all of the traditional pathways that lead to some of the core occupations in our industry, such as mechanical, electrical, pipe fitting, plating, design and drafting, project control, instrumentation and control. There's a whole range of them. So it's worth considering. If you want to find out more about ECITB scholarships, you can do that through Google, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. Okay, so that's enough. I think that's nearly enough from me. I hope I've given you some information to help you understand just how many diverse and rewarding career opportunities there are in our industry. Should you wish to undertake a scholarship or even an apprenticeship to enter the industry, more information can be found on our website, but I would really encourage you to give it due consideration. You won't regret it. Could I have the next slide, please? So that's all very well and good. You know, head of new entrants from the ECITB telling you what a brilliant industry it is. I think it would be a little bit more powerful if it came directly from some of our apprentices that are currently working in industry. So I'm going to now introduce you to 3. So the 3 apprentices are going to give you a little bit of an insight into their journey, how they got into industry, what the appeal was, etc., etc. So I'm going to introduce you to Dan, Jamie and Kyle. So first one up then is Dan. I'll hand over to you, Dan.
Hi everyone, my name's Dan Sanders and I am a technician working out of WSP in Birmingham. I'm in my 4th year now, and my main responsibilities involve providing mechanical and process design support, working with a variety of engineers across all different projects across our business, primarily in the food and beverage, chemicals and pharmaceutical sectors. So we've got a few talking points that we're all going to run through here. Just to hopefully give you a bit of insight into what it is like being an apprentice in an engineering environment. So first of all, why did I choose to go down the apprenticeship route? Well, I came to a point in my life where I was happy studying and I wanted to further my education. but I wanted to go out there and get my hands dirty, for want of a better phrase, and get stuck in with some actual work. So I chose the route because I am an active learner. So that means I learn better by doing things practically as opposed to just learning in a classroom. And the apprenticeship route was perfect for that, because I could learn the theory behind what I'm doing and apply that to real life projects on a day-to-day basis, really. So that it was a pretty perfect fit in terms of that. Engineering's a sector as well that I've had an interest in for a long time, and I knew that it was always progressing and changing. So the quicker you can get in and get stuck in, and get learning, the better, really, because obviously it's always changing. It's a very dynamic environment, so it's great to get in there and start learning your area of expertise. A little bit about my experience as an apprentice. In terms of work-college balance, for me, so 25% of your time on the job time is to be spent training. So one day a week I'd be at college doing my level 3 qualification. Alongside that, I'd be doing my level 3 MVQ. So the sort of, you can expect sort of like a 25% of your time to be spent on trainings, usually more, but that's sort of the minimum you should be spending on sort of training and on the job learning. And then the other sort of 75%, that'll be live project work and putting your learning into practice. One of the main things I think you could expect as an apprentice in an engineering environment is that every day can be a new challenge. A lot of variety is to be expected. I think experience and training in different departments across your company is very common, especially in engineering apprenticeships. And this is great because it gives you a broad perspective of how you want your career to progress. Just as an example, sort of an anecdote, I started my career as a mechanical design apprentice, and my main job role now is in project controls with a view of going down the project management route. So that's just an example of how, obviously, coming into the industry with no real engineering work experience, usually, it's great to sort of get that experience, and then you could sort of forge your own career then. And the apprenticeship route is very accommodating of that. Also in my sort of 4-year-ish career so far, I've visited construction sites all over the UK and experienced everything from the finances and management of a project to working with top engineers to produce some designs that I am really quite proud of. Some that have won awards. There's all sort of projects we can be involved in, depending on your choice of company and your choice of department. There's just so many opportunities to develop and progress, and this really is quite exciting, even on a day-to-day basis. In terms of apprenticeships being important for the future, I think the engineering industry represents the opportunity for me and people like me to have a say in things, sort of future things like future infrastructure, future technology, and even something that a lot of us are quite passionate about is climate change as well. And you can directly affect that with the designs you're producing and the learning you're doing, and how you can influence the industry in a positive way. In a lot of ways, the engineering of the future and now really affects the way we live our lives, and to be part of that is really exciting and important for me and so many others like me. A piece of advice I would give my younger self, say just starting my career, I would say that the main thing for me is to not be afraid to sort of take opportunities and ask questions. I think the main thing to remember is no one's expecting you to be an expert. It would be a bit strange if you were an expert coming in with no experience, but I think that it's very important to ask those questions, and it also shows a great positive attitude and a willingness to learn, and I think that goes a long way. Especially as someone who is just starting out their career, I think that your attitude is what will set you apart, and your willingness to learn as well. I think if you take these opportunities and ask questions, you'll be in a great position come the end of your apprenticeship and all throughout your career. So yeah, that's all from me. So I'll pass on to Jamie.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. I'm an electrician apprentice from Northwest England, and I work for Engender. Basically, up until what I've done now has all been in the petrochemical industry, based in a place called Runcorn. And obviously, it's quite different being an electrician to an engineer. It's more site-based, and I think it suits people completely different. for me, it's worked so far. I mean, it's given me the sort of learning I'm doing is very hands-on, and I can see it, and then it's sort of, well, the phrase is monkey see, monkey do. Just watch someone do it, give it time, and then that's you. And it's as I say, it's worked for me so far. I'm in 4th year and final. I think I've got my AM2 date, which is the last test, coming up in about 4 months, and then hopefully after that I'll then be qualified. A typical day for me, it's obviously, as I say, it's completely site-based, my job. It's all sorts of projects. I've spent all the 4 years so far just completely on the one site for contracting for INEOS, and the site's about 8 kilometers long, and there's a lot of production. It's everything from hydrogen to hydrochlorides, ammonia. So there's a lot of variety there, which is great for someone who needs something new and something different every day. As I say, all sorts of projects, and there's all sorts of roles into the electrical sector. I think I've worked with technicians, I've worked with obviously electricians, engineers. There's all sorts. I think what my job sort of encompasses is doing a bit of everything. I've had the installation work for my first 2 years, and then this past the past one has been a mixture of everything. I think my firm's been lucky enough to give me a lot of opportunities to do some maintenance, some commissioning, and then some decommissioning too. Obviously, making space for the new renewable projects that the site's making, which is really important, and it's really interesting. Why did I choose an apprenticeship? It took me a bit of time, to be honest, and it wasn't something that come naturally to me. I had no idea, I'll be honest. I finished school 16, and I needed more time, so I decided to do A levels, give me 2 years, and then in that time I did a lot of work experience in a few different sectors. One of them being the manufacturing industry, and I had a bit of experience doing mechanical and then electrical. There's a choice between that, and then it was a toss-up, but they're both great. And I had to go down the electrical route in the end, which I've not looked back since. I really enjoyed it. I think some of the work experience I did was it was mainly, as I say, manufacturing, but I did some more office-based things, and I think there's a big choice to make. I felt like I could have carried on to uni, or I could have went for more of an office-based job. And for a lot of people, that would have been the best route. I'm glad I didn't. The apprentice I chose, the apprenticeship that I chose, I decided it's really closed no doors for me. I think as soon as I finish, then I'll have more qualifications, obviously, when I started, and I'll be in a better position than a lot of people coming out with degrees going into some roles. I've had the 4 years experience on site, which is, it's priceless. I think the things you learn on site, as well as the inside the college, they sort of synonymously go together, and you learn things off, pick little bits and take it over to the other side. I think the course I do is it encompasses a lot of everything electrical, really. And obviously the stuff I'm doing is heavily industrial, and there's some lads on my course who do domestics, they do commercial, and it's the opposite end completely. So I can pick things up from that, and there's the odd time that I'll need it on site, and it's a good thing to know, and it's helpful. What advice would I give my 16-year-old self? Ask as many questions to as many people until they tell you to go away. It's as simple as that. I think the more you can ask, the more you can get. The best thing I think too is someone needs to know you're interested. As an apprentice, I mean, I know what it was like when I started. You're nervous. It's a scary thing. So you might look on your phone or just like your head in the ground, and how that comes across is not how you're meaning it to. And a lot of people can see that, and then they think you're not interested, or you're just doing it for something, a quick job, anything. But you can be really passionate about it, and I think the best way to do that is just by showing them. If you ask a question 100 times out of 100, honestly, I mean, someone's always going to want to help, because they were there originally too. So it's a great thing learning from people who've come through the apprenticeship route too, and gone through college, because they just want to help, and it's great to be in that situation. But thanks a lot for your time. I'm going to pass you over to Kyle.
Hi everyone, hopefully you can see and hear me. I'm conscious that there's a lot of questions rolling into the Q&A, which is good, so I won't talk for too long. My name is Kyle. I'm a control and instrumentation engineer for Worley, which is a global engineering company. I mainly deal with the design, installation and the maintenance of equipment used to monitor engineering processes. 25 years old, and I've been in the industry nearly 9 years now, which is quite crazy to say because it's gone so quickly. And the first 4 years of that were doing an engineering apprenticeship. So I was 16, just finished my GCSEs, and I'd always sort of had this goal that I wanted to get straight into a company, earn a proper wage, and start working my way up the ladder through pretty much experience and just increased responsibility. I like my maths and I like my science. So when I was doing my initial research, engineering was kind of the main profession that stood out to me. I found an apprenticeship scheme that suited my needs, and I did this by lots of research and going to different careers events. Careers events are where companies of any companies set up their stand that advertise what they do and the career options that they offer. And I saw this same engineering company at every single event and spoke to them each time. I applied for their apprenticeship and I was lucky enough to get it. So the apprenticeship itself, I think I saw somebody ask about how long the apprenticeship was. Mine was a 4-year course. The first year was full-time at college doing my level 3, bearing in mind that I was getting paid to learn at that time. The second year was 1 day at college doing my HNC, and then the rest of the week I was in my company's main office working and gaining experience on real engineering projects from all around the world. The third year of the apprenticeship was pretty much the same as the second, 1 day doing my HNC and the rest in the office. The final year I was done with college, and I was full-time in the office. And what some apprenticeships do, but not all apprenticeships, is they give you the chance to apply for sponsorship to do a university degree. So basically the company might pay for you to do a degree. And I went on to do that, but that's a whole different story. Coming back to apprenticeships, I think if I could go back and speak to my 16-year-old self, some advice I'd give to him is I'd say it can be very daunting starting an apprenticeship, because in these big companies, you're surrounded by professionals with years and years of experience, and it can feel like asking them some questions, any questions, can feel a little bit stupid or a hindrance to them, which is never the case. Over the years, I've worked with a variety of different people, different personalities and different characters, good and bad, but there's never been a situation where I've felt like I've been made to feel silly for asking a question. I think it's more efficient for everyone to ask and get something right than to get it wrong, to blindly guess and get it wrong. So that's pretty much my story. If you've got any questions about any of that, feel free to put it in the chat. If you think about anything after the webinar, I'm sure there'll be a way for you to contact the ECITB. Thank you, everyone, and I'll hand it back to Adrian to wrap things up.
Okay, thanks, guys. So I think for me that's really powerful, because it's coming from 3 individuals that have been in the same position that you guys are in, where you're probably looking around going, oh goodness me, what am I going to do? Well, you don't know what you don't know. And I think it was really important that Kyle made the point that you do need to do your research. The more research you do, the better informed you are, and the more opportunities you can identify. And all of these guys started off on their journey, and an apprenticeship is just the beginning of your journey. You'll probably get a feel from what they've been saying when they're explaining about their personal circumstances and how they found their way into an apprenticeship, that they're looking beyond the apprenticeship, and it does. An apprenticeship will open so many doors for you. It's a really good way to get into the industry, and it's a really good way to earn while you learn. Okay, so that's kind of it from us. I don't know if we've got an opportunity to maybe unpick some of the questions.
Hello. Yeah, that's really insightful and so much info there, and lots of questions. So I guess I'll just give you a couple, but feel free to pick out any that you want to focus on as well. I was just reading one from Zach. What is the best way for someone to network and find opportunities? Because you're mentioning asking lots of questions, which I think is great advice when you're starting out as well. But what about building a network, or maybe even like finding a mentor or someone like that?
Well, I think what Kyle mentioned about going to careers fairs, if you're not in an apprenticeship currently, I think the best way is to go to those careers fairs and meet the people actually in those jobs at the moment. I think, Kyle, you mentioned you did a lot of that, and that stood you in good stead. If you saw it, you got to speak to actual Worley employees, and then you managed to get in with that apprenticeship, and you kind of find a bit about what they're looking for and what the job might look like. I think that's really important. And then when you join the company, you've already got a set of contacts from these careers fairs that you've already got there. You know, you've got a network ready in the company you're going to work in. So I think that's useful. It's always useful getting LinkedIn. I think we've had a few in our companies. We've done a few work experience days, and people tend to have LinkedIn now, and they sort of connect with you, and then you can form your network that way online. I think there's a few different ways of doing it.
Yeah, I'll add on to that quickly, because I was just going to make the point of LinkedIn as well, because I know after COVID, these careers events might have slowed down, or they're not as frequent. So don't be afraid to set up a LinkedIn account if you don't have one already, and type in a profession that you want to look into, see somebody's name, and just send them a message. You know, what's the worst that could happen is they don't reply, and you can then speak to somebody else. It's so easy and so quick, and it's definitely an effective way to network.
Yeah, that's really good advice. All right, what are the biggest challenges facing the growth of renewable energy? That's a big question. I don't know who wants to tackle that one.
That was a big question.
Go on, Jamie.
Yeah, I can try it. I think apprentices like us, I think new entrants, it's obviously a growing field. It's a field that a lot of people are interested in, and it gets my attention. But without the people coming in and the young people, the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, I mean, even some of the older people, because obviously people can go and do apprentices at any age. I know I'm on a college course with a lad who's 25, and he's done his degree and he's come back because he wanted to become an electrician. There's other lads on the course who do work in the renewable sectors because they're all very passionate about it. They're all interested. I just think, I think the youth are the answer.
So was the question? So was the question what are the biggest challenges facing?
Yes.
Renewables?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is. I think what you were touching on there, Jamie, as well, is the sort of skills gaps there, and I think apprenticeships are really key to solving that. I think if we can get people in early and sort of have mentors and reverse mentoring as well, I think we can get the skills transfer across and really plug that gap. So we can build those bridges to sort of achieve net zero, and the renewable sector will be much better off for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think engineering is a profession that has a lot of old people stuck in their ways, and a lot of old companies that have been so stuck in their ways for so long. So for something like this to come along and everybody has to change what they're doing, it takes young people like us to come in, breath of fresh air, and start that kind of cycle.
I think the other key point, and I absolutely agree with everything that the guys have said. The other thing is the awareness. The more we can do to raise the awareness of all the sectors in the industry, the better. Because if you're not in an environment where you're exposed to certain sectors, renewables is a good example, you may not be aware of all of the opportunities that exist. So again, I come back to what the guys have said, do your research. Google's a really good tool. LinkedIn's a really good tool. Identify companies that operate in the sector that you're interested in and start following them on LinkedIn. So there's some really sound advice coming in there from the panel.
Mm-hmm. And this is related as well. Eva asks, could you share any resources that would help someone get started? And I think obviously you mentioned LinkedIn, looking at companies that you're inspired by on Google, but is there like a good like resource hub that people should check out?
There are probably lots of resources out there. That's quite a difficult one to answer. We'll mull on that and we'll see if we can pull some resources together and maybe share them back through the chat or however we do that.
But they are available. Google, to put it quite simply, there's lots out there. It's just into a sort of a case of finding it, I think. Mm-hmm. Going out, doing your own research, finding what you're interested in and doing some more research into that.
Yeah, I think if you start by finding out, a list of engineering companies, that's the basis. Find out that the different companies in the area that you want to go into, they've all got websites. And these websites have links that can take you down all sorts of avenues, and that'll give you enough information just to get started.
And I was also thinking, when you recommended like reaching out on LinkedIn and things, when you reach out to those people, you could also ask them individually, like, what are your best resources? What would you recommend? And things like that.
I think there is one resource that probably is worth doing is if you Google Renewables UK, that will take you to Renewables UK, and that organisation will have a wealth of information on there.
Cool, thank you. All right. So then there is a question about how do apprentices receive recognition for their achievements and progress?
Good question. I think when I finished my apprenticeship, I've got to think back now because it's quite a few years ago. My company at the time, Worley, had these things called town halls, which are office meetings where everybody is crammed into one room and we go over how the company's done. And we also have recognition slides where people who have got certificates for whatever reason are recognised. They stand up and everybody claps for them. And when I finished the apprenticeship, that's the sort of thing that my company did. And it's a good feeling to feel recognition, especially at such a young age with such little experience, that a company that big, recognises you and how much effort you've put in.
Yeah, I think the key thing, I think it varies company to company, but I think the main theme is companies really do appreciate apprentices. I think the work you do, it doesn't go unrecognised ever, and I think it's I think in my experience anyway, most companies, most big firms especially, really appreciate the work their apprentices do and sort of put that on a pedestal in some cases. I think it's really good to see. I think that in terms of my company, there's sort of there's both sort of financial recognition for certain milestones, and there's also we also have a star award scheme where that's sort of like a voucher, thing when you sort of do something good or you've done a good piece of work, delivered a project. So yeah, I think it doesn't go unnoticed at all in my experience anyway.
If there's another angle to this, if you're thinking about in terms of qualifications, if you're doing an apprenticeship, at the end of the apprenticeship, you'll get an apprenticeship certificate. And if there's any qualifications within the apprenticeship, you will get certified through those qualifications as well.
Okay, question from Molly. Does it make a difference if you start an apprenticeship after A levels or after GCSEs?
I'd say yes, for different reasons. I think obviously I did my A levels first. I'm on a course, as I've said, with a lot of people from all different backgrounds, and some of us are further ahead than others, but it's got nothing to do with that. I think for me, I did maths at one of my A levels, and obviously in the electrician course, a big part of that is, well, a fair part is to do with science and some of the math problems and equations to solve, and I found that helped me a lot. That it just helped me sort of move forward. So it's never going to hinder you doing your A levels. I think I felt like I was a bit older than everyone else too. I was starting mine at 18 rather than 16. But then, as I said, I joined the course and there was 25-year-olds, 27-year-olds. You can do it at any age. I think it's never going to hinder you, any of the qualifications you're getting. And I personally, I'd recommend doing the A levels if you feel a bit more mature. But then again, if you feel ready, everyone's different. So if you want to go straight into it at 16, like, completely fine, because either way, I think you'll smash it.
Yeah, I think it's a very hard question to answer. I think it's very individual. So I think just do whatever feels right to you.
Yeah, that's a good advice. And there's lots of resources now in the chat. So if you were the person who asked about resources, definitely check out all of the things that have been suggested in the Q&A section. Okay, lots of people talking about Go Construct, yeah, for resources as well. Okay, people asking a bit more specific. Someone will have an environmental science degree in September, congratulations, and talking about graduate apprenticeship schemes available for that. Would there be anything specific that you would recommend?
There's certainly grad schemes out there. I'm not sure, Adrian, if they're apprenticeships as such, or if they're just
There's both really. I think one of the links that we've put in is apprenticeships.gov.uk. And if you have a look, there's a whole range of apprenticeships. So one of the things that we need to be very clear on is apprenticeships are for all ages at all levels. So the guys have explained how they entered on a level 3 apprenticeship. If you then go up, you've got level 4, level 5, level 6, all the way through to master's level apprenticeships. So there are a range of degree level apprenticeships, and I would recommend that you have a look using the apprenticeships.gov.uk. Have a look at the standards and have a read of them, find out more about them, and there's lots of information you can use on those standards to get further information, if that makes sense. So you're absolutely right, Dan, that there are graduate schemes. They're for people that come straight from university into employment, but there's also the option of entering the industry through a degree level apprenticeship. So there's lots of options.
And these are, I think, questions that relate to this as well. But Stacey asked, can you do engineering if you aren't good at maths? Good question.
You might get a headache.
Yeah, I'm gonna say you can, but you definitely can.
Yeah.
Everyone can learn. It's just there is a lot of maths involved. I can't lie and say there's not a lot of maths involved, but I think everyone can learn, especially with an apprenticeship. That's what it's for. But yeah. So short answer, yes.
Yeah,
be brave. Yeah, don't be put off.
Yeah, because I say I liked maths, but I wasn't necessarily any sort of maths whiz. I think, and I went to go on to do a degree as well after the apprenticeship, and I wasn't great at maths. I think if you put in enough time and put in enough effort, and organise your time right, you'll be able to do anything. Not if you're awful at maths, I mean, it's going to be more difficult than if you're a whiz. But just put in the time, put in the hours, and you'll be okay.
I'll agree with that, because I'm an engineer by background and I'm absolutely awful at maths. and that's why I said you'll get a headache. Doesn't mean you can't do it. You maybe just have to relearn. And by that, I mean, maybe you just need to relearn new techniques to understand the maths. So it's possible. Anything's possible. Don't be put off.
Okay, so we have a question. I know you guys gave advice for your 16-year-old self, but this person is 14 and they already know what they're interested in, which I think is a huge achievement even in itself. And they think they're interested in this field, but they don't know where to start. So what advice would you give that person?
I think, look, as some of the lads said, that they said on LinkedIn and Googling companies, I think that's a good way to start. It just gives you a bit more of an idea. Anything to make your view clearer will always benefit you positively. For me, as I said, the work experience made a massive difference. I think just because once you get that sort of, I was in a position I had no idea at all. That just gave me, it was only a week, 2 weeks with a few different companies, but that makes all the difference because you get a good feel for it. You work in pretty much identical situations as you will be in an apprenticeship. And it's the best way for me to learn. Obviously, you are giving up maybe a week of your time for no pay, which isn't great, but it pays off on the long term.
I'd just like to reiterate the point that I think Kyle made about doing the research. You identify companies. There's nothing to stop you sending a letter to a company if you've identified the sector and the type of organisation you'd like to work for. Finding out who the key players are and sending a letter in and just, saying, could I speak to someone? I'm really interested. I'd like to learn more. They'd be delighted, I'm sure. So there's lots of ways. And it all comes down to being inquisitive.
That's great advice. Okay, question from Paul. How often are apprenticeship standards updated to keep up with new technologies?
So the apprenticeship standards in England, they're managed by the Institute for Apprenticeships and Technical Education, which is a part of the government. They're part of the Department for Education. Now, each apprenticeship standard will have someone in I-FATE that looks after it, and they'll have a group of employers. And those group of employers are industry experts, if you like, that have helped develop the apprenticeship standard. Normally, it's around about every 3 years the apprenticeship is updated. However, if something radical happens and it needs updating, then I'm pretty sure there's mechanisms in place that they can review it sooner if it's critical. But generally, I think it's around about every 3 years. So yeah, and don't forget that if something does come to the fore and it's a technological development, then that will be picked up by the employer when the apprentice is in the workplace. So you're constantly exposed to new and evolving technologies as you go through your journey.
Okay, Oliver asks, what GCSE results do you need? And I know you said there was a range of, there's always an option for everyone, but I guess what should you be aiming for, or what would be good?
I think the only absolute necessities are maths and English. I think it varies apprenticeship to apprenticeship, but I think you need a minimum of a C in maths and English. Sorry, a science would be preferable as well. But I think there are options as long as you pass maths and English. I'm not entirely sure on the details of every apprenticeship, but I think that there are options for as long as you have that maths and English passed. That I think that there's options out there.
Yeah, I agree. And I know the grading system's kind of changed now. It's not A star to C like when I did it. But
got my age there, didn't I?
Yeah, I think mine
I was that awkward group.
Mine was 5 GCSEs, A star to C, whatever that is, and I think you had to have maths and English, and I think science was didn't have to have science, but it would help if you did.
Yeah, great. That makes sense. Okay, question from Eddie. Really keen to get an apprenticeship in renewables, especially wind turbines, but there aren't any vacancies near me. What can I do? Is it just look, see what's available, and then I guess if you're interested in something really specific, what would be your advice if there's nothing around you?
I think you don't have to dive specifically into the area you need straight away. Like Dan was saying, he was quite flexible with his role and how it changed as he grew into his career a bit more and learned a bit more. So if you know you want to do that sort of renewable work, see if you can get into a company that does that in a more broad way, and you start by being an electrician, or you start in control instrumentation, and then you can specify where you want to go once you're in the company. I think that's the best advice I could give.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, sorry.
Karen, Aidan.
I was just about to say that's a really important point that Carl's just raised there, and that is that the skills you get from an apprenticeship are transferable. So if you start off in one sector, say for instance you started off working in the pharmaceutical sector, you get transferable skills that would enable you to transfer into the other sectors. And the other point to note is the bigger the company, the more sectors they'll work in. So you can enter an apprenticeship with one company working in one sector, and then with that same employer, you could then end up working in different sectors. Sorry, Dan, you were going to...
I was just going to address Eddie's second question, where he said, do companies help to relocate or help you to get a driving license? I'd say for an apprenticeship, that's unlikely. They're coming in there with no experience. I'm not entirely sure on the details again, but I think the best advice is what Kyle and Adrian have said there. I think rather than looking for one a bit further out and hoping to get a relocation fee or anything like that, I'd say like Adrian and Carl just discussed there. So go for the transferable skills. Try and get something within renewables, and then you can move into your more specific sectors as you gain those transferable skills and that foundation of knowledge.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I think it's so hard to know, and I'm sure this applies to all careers. You always think, oh, that's the field I'm going to be interested in, or you've done some reading, but until you really get in there, it's quite hard to know exactly what it feels like or what the actual job is like. So yeah, good advice to start broad, see what you can get around you, and then maybe navigate from there. Okay, so talking about skills, transferable skills, Warren asks, what kind of skills do you think are essential for someone who wants to work in renewable energy?
Well, I think that depends on what type of role you're doing in renewable energy. If you're working on wind turbines, for instance, and you're looking for a technician role, then you would probably have mechanical and electrical as a baseline skill set, but obviously there's other roles in renewables, and again it just comes down to the point that both Dan and Kyle made, and I think Jamie alluded to as well, is that the skill sets you get from an engineering apprenticeship, especially in the circumstances of the gentleman on the panel today, it will allow you to have transferable skills, so you will be able to move in. But generally, wind turbine is if you're working on the turbines, it'll be electrical, mechanical. You'll have to do some other stuff as well, like working at height, some safety courses as well. But that's kind of like the basic skills profile would be electrical and mechanical. If you wanted to find out more information, I think the Global Wind Organization will be a good place to look. I don't know if we can find a link to put in the chat, as well as our UK, Renewables UK, and we've already shared that link.
Okay, question. Am I less likely to be offered future roles within engineering if I go the apprenticeship route versus going to university? I'm assuming the answer is no, but
yeah, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say you're probably more likely. So if you say, for example, you do an apprenticeship, you come out with a degree. So say it's a 4 or 5 year apprenticeship, you come out with a degree. You've also got 5 years work experience as opposed to just having a degree. So I'd actually say that being an apprentice stands you in good stead. I know. Just again, this is personal experience again, but a lot of our directors at my place, they all started out as apprentices, and I think that goes to show really.
Exactly the same as Dan. I think in my company too, a lot of the directors come from apprenticeship routes. So I think the companies value it a lot, as you say, for the experience, the maturity it gives you, the knowledge on site. It gives you a very broad idea, especially if you start out as I've started out now, quite a very foundational as an electrician. I have aspirations to move up and to go into engineering, and it's given me a base layer and an understanding that I would never been able to get as an engineer. I think if I would have gone straight from university to the industry, I don't know, I have no real appreciation for what you go through on site, and likewise in any of the other roles that you see happening. It's very easy sometimes to feel disconnected from other people in other roles, but if you see it happening yourself, massively it opens your eyes and it makes everything a lot easier.
Okay, someone who missed their question being answered because the audio went. If you just type what your question was in the Q&A again, we'll ask to try and summarize it for you. Question from Ben: what happens if you don't pass an exam? I guess, Ben, do you mean an apprenticeship? Like if you don't pass your apprenticeship qualification, what would happen then? I guess you would just retake whatever exam it was.
Yeah, I think it depends what exam you mean. I think in terms of sort of level 3 qualification college wise, I think it was all coursework for me. In terms of sort of passing your apprenticeship, if you were to fail that, you would just resit it. I mean, I don't know the limits on that type of thing, but I think it's very rare that people fail. I think that the apprenticeship stands you in such good stead, and you're literally just reporting on the work you've done and summarising the good work you've done. So I think it's it's not something to worry about.
Yeah, I also would say one thing that's quite consistent if you've been coming to a few of these style presentations is that it really is an investment in you as a person, like when you start an apprenticeship, and the company really wants to help you on your way as well. So it's not like pass or fail, like trying to eject you out of the process, more just like helping you to support and like upskill yourself. That's at least my takeaway from these.
It's a team effort, and I don't know if Jamie, Dan, and Kyle will agree here, but there's 3 stakeholders in the apprenticeship. There's the learner, there's the training provider, and there's the employer. And all 3 of those stakeholders all work together to realise a successful outcome. So there's plenty of support.
Cool. I think we have almost come to the end of the questions. If there were any that I missed, please drop them in the Q&A right now so we can just do them before we finish. But otherwise, I wondered if you had any like final words of wisdom or like final pieces of advice that you want to leave our attendees with.
I'll go. I don't want this to feel like we're hammering you to do an apprenticeship route. We've said it quite a few times already. You have to do your own research. You don't have to rush things. Do your own research. Work out which route is best for you. If it's an apprenticeship, then research the companies that do apprenticeships and whatnot, and go down that route. And if it's a university route, do that. You can come out with different skills from both, and they're both beneficial to excel your career forward.
Yeah, I think I'll summarize with a bit of advice I was given at a careers fair a long time ago, and it was just if you're interested in something, surround yourself with it. So obviously social media is massive nowadays. I think there's so many ways you can sort of surround yourself with the things you're interested in, sort of career wise. So say for example I was interested in mechanical engineering, I would sort of try and search whether that's Twitter, Instagram. We all use these apps and spend quite a lot of time on these apps sometimes, so it's good to sort of absorb this information without even realizing it. I think if you surround yourself with something, it will stand you in good stead, and you'll sort of, not without even realizing it, you'll absorb quite a lot of information, and that'll definitely help you to get started on your journey.
Massively agree. I think for me too, depending on what age you're at, you're always at a point in your life where people are trying to pull you left, pull you right, and sort of push you into roles or positions or jobs, anything that you might not be the best or might not be interested in. As I say, it's your life. Whatever suits you best, you need to find that out for yourself. And there's a lot of help everyone can give you along the way. Teachers, their parents are massive help. Colleges, companies, LinkedIn, Google, anything. But I think the best way is to do what you want is better. There's ways of going about it, but whatever makes you most happy. And it's a cliche, but it's very true.
No one wants you to fail in life. There's plenty of people who want you to succeed in life. So just take what the guys have told you today and reflect on it, and then maybe be inquisitive, be adventurous, and do your research and reach out. There are lots of opportunities if this is a path you wish to take.
That's a great note to end on as well. So thank you so much. So for everyone watching and listening, if you need any links from the chat, you can just keep this open after we finish, because that chat will stay up. So if you need to grab those links, just get them now and bookmark them or whatever you need to do. Grab the QR code if you need it as well. And if you did register for the session today, you'll get an email with the recording and also a link to the QR code. And if you didn't register for the session, go back onto the Career Map website and look for the recording there. So hopefully you'll be able to find it. And thank you so much for coming today and for talking to us. I think I definitely learned a lot. I know we all, had a great insight into the industry. So thank you so much for coming, and see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot for having us.